Julien Moreau and Claire Dubois walked through the Louvre that rainy morning, unaware that by the end of the day, their lives and the world's perception of art security would be shattered forever. What happened next stunned experts, historians, and millions of viewers. Priceless masterpieces vanished without a trace, leaving behind 9 bizarre clues that no one could explain. The Louvre Museum, a symbol of art, history, and security, seemed untouchable. Millions of visitors walk through its grand halls every year, gazing at priceless paintings and sculptures without a second thought about danger. Guards patrolled diligently, cameras monitored every corner, and alarms were connected to every door and window. To the outside world, it was a fortress. Yet behind its gilded walls, a shadowy plan was quietly taking shape, one that would shake the art world to its core. Months before the heist, a group of unknown individuals began studying the museum with an obsession that bordered on mania. They memorized the timing of guard rotations, learned the subtle patterns of motion sensors, and even traced the paths of hidden maintenance corridors. Every detail, no matter how small, was scrutinized. They observed the entrances and exits, the delivery docks, and the seldom-used staircases that led to exhibition rooms. Their surveillance was relentless, conducted during daylight hours and under the cover of night, blending seamlessly with the museum's daily rhythm. On the morning of the heist, Paris was shrouded in gray clouds, the streets slick from overnight rain. The museum opened as usual, with crowds slowly trickling through the grand halls. Guards checked tickets, cameras rotated along their program paths, and no one noticed the subtle disturbances that hinted at what was about to unfold. The thieves, cloaked in ordinary clothing and moving with precise coordination, entered without drawing attention. Their movements were calculated, almost mechanical, as if rehearsed 1,000 times. Within minutes, they had reached the heart of the museum, bypassing alarms and cameras in ways that no one could explain. What shocked investigators most was not only how quickly the theft occurred but how utterly undetectable it seemed at the time. The security systems that were supposed to protect centuries of cultural heritage were rendered useless in an instant, as if the thieves had studied the museum's very soul. By the time anyone realized something was wrong, the heist was already complete. Priceless artworks, some never expected to leave their frames, had vanished without a trace. The calm, orderly environment of the Louvre had been shattered, replaced by chaos, disbelief, and the haunting question: how could one of the most secure museums in the world be outsmarted so completely? Even as authorities scrambled to understand what had happened, the world began to grasp that this was no ordinary crime. This was a carefully orchestrated operation, one that would leave historians, detectives, and the public stunned for years to come, wondering not just who was responsible, but how it was even possible. The thieves didn't settle for ordinary targets. They sought the kind of art that seemed untouchable, pieces that carried centuries of history and unimaginable value. Within minutes, they had bypassed the museum's most advanced security measures and were inside the exhibition rooms where masterpieces hung behind bulletproof glass and laser alarms. What stunned investigators was not only the audacity of their choices, but the precision with which the thefts were executed. One painting, considered so valuable it had been insured for hundreds of millions, was removed from its frame without a single scratch on the canvas. It was as if the artwork had been lifted by invisible hands. The precision required to do so without triggering any alarms or leaving evidence left experts baffled. Another work of art, a sculpture of delicate marble, was carefully wrapped and carried out, leaving the surrounding area untouched. No dust was displaced. No fingerprints remained. Even the most seasoned security personnel were forced to question the reality of what had occurred. The chaos of the heist seemed almost theatrical. Surveillance footage, which normally recorded every moment in crystal clarity, had been partially corrupted in a way that suggested deliberate tampering. Forensic analysts found gaps in the footage, as if the thieves had anticipated the camera's blind spots. Shadowy figures moved quickly, disappearing behind columns and blending with shadows, making it impossible to trace their exact path. What made the event even stranger was the method of entry. Some thieves used corridors hidden from public view, known only to maintenance staff, while others appeared to manipulate electronic locks with knowledge that only an insider could possess. The level of coordination was unparalleled, and the more investigators studied the evidence, the more questions arose. By the time the theft was discovered, several irreplaceable works had vanished completely. The world watched in disbelief as news outlets reported the theft. Art collectors, historians, and museum officials were left in shock, struggling to comprehend how one of the most secure museums on the planet could be penetrated with such ease. Beyond the value of the stolen items, the heist carried a symbolic weight. It was a brazen statement against the idea of invulnerability. The audacity of removing artworks that were meant to be untouchable made headlines worldwide. As authorities began to investigate, they realized this was not just a robbery. It was a meticulously planned operation that challenged every assumption about security, intelligence, and human cunning. Each stolen piece seemed to vanish into thin air, leaving behind only mystery, intrigue, and a chilling sense that the Louvre would never be the same again. When investigators arrived at the scene, they quickly realized that this heist was unlike anything they had ever encountered. Amid the chaos of stolen art and disrupted security systems, they found 9 bizarre details that defied logic. Each clue seemed disconnected from the others, yet together, they painted a picture of a crime carefully designed to confuse and challenge. The first clue was a fine layer of sand scattered throughout a ventilation shaft leading to one of the galleries. Tests revealed that the sand was not local, it came from a remote desert thousands of miles away. How it arrived in the Louvre remained a mystery, leaving experts baffled. The second oddity was a single shoe print left on a polished marble floor. It did not match any known brand, size, or style, as if the thief had deliberately worn something untraceable. Other strange discoveries only deepened the mystery. A rare type of ink used centuries ago in old manuscripts was found smeared on the edge of a display case, its purpose unclear. Tiny scratches appeared on a security panel, but there was no evidence of forced entry. Under one of the pedestals, a folded note was discovered, written in a code that stumped cryptographers around the world. Days of analysis yielded nothing. The message remained indecipherable, leaving everyone wondering if it was a taunt, a clue, or merely a distraction. Even more inexplicable were subtle signs that suggested the thieves had intimate knowledge of the museum's hidden architecture. Certain alarm sensors had been bypassed without triggering alerts, and some doors were found slightly ajar, though no one had seen them opened. Investigators concluded that someone on the inside might have assisted, but no leads pointed to a suspect. The combination of expertise, audacity, and strange symbolism in these details turned the theft into a puzzle. Each day brought new theories, but no definitive answers. The public became obsessed with the story, not just because of the missing art, but because of the bizarre clues that hinted at something larger: a hidden message, an elaborate game, or even a personal vendetta. Experts debated endlessly over why the thieves would leave behind evidence so strange it seemed almost theatrical. Every report emphasized the same point: these 9 details made the Louvre heist more than a robbery. It was an enigma, a crime that challenged logic and left the world questioning the limits of human cunning. For historians, detectives, and curious onlookers, it became clear that solving this mystery would require not just skill and knowledge, but imagination, and even then, the answer might never come. Just as the investigation seemed to be making progress, a twist emerged that no one could have predicted. Some of the stolen artworks were discovered not in secret warehouses or hidden stashes, but in plain sight. A small, obscure gallery in another city displayed a few of the masterpieces, cleverly disguised with altered frames, false signatures, and subtle modifications that made them appear as ordinary reproductions. The audacity of hiding priceless works in public view stunned both authorities and the art community. It seemed almost impossible that anyone could look at these paintings and suspect they were stolen treasures. Yet the criminals had engineered the deception perfectly, turning ordinary observation into a trap of misdirection. Even stranger were the indications that someone on the inside might have assisted the thieves. Security logs, maintenance schedules, and internal communications revealed gaps and anomalies that could only have been manipulated by someone familiar with the museum's inner workings. Doors that were supposed to be locked remained slightly open, alarms were bypassed with precision, and surveillance cameras had temporary blind spots that coincided exactly with the thieves' movements. The level of insider knowledge required was staggering, and it suggested a betrayal from within: a trusted employee or someone with intimate access to restricted areas. Authorities struggled to identify the mole, but every lead ended in frustration. As investigators pieced together the timeline, it became clear that the thieves had operated with a mix of patience, skill, and audacity that defied understanding. Each recovered artwork told a story of meticulous planning and cunning execution. The Louvre's layers of security, designed to prevent even the smallest theft, had been navigated with surgical precision. The criminals seemed always one step ahead, anticipating every contingency and manipulating every factor to their advantage. The world watched in disbelief as the story unfolded. News outlets covered the hidden gallery, the bizarre disguises, and the implications of insider involvement. Art historians debated how such priceless works could be tampered with without anyone noticing. Collectors speculated whether some stolen pieces had already been sold on the black market, while others remained hidden, waiting for a chance to disappear again. The Louvre heist had evolved from a simple crime into a complex mystery of deception, betrayal, and audacious cunning. It was no longer about missing paintings. It was about unraveling a scheme that challenged every assumption about security, loyalty, and human ingenuity. Even with some pieces recovered, the case remained unresolved, leaving a haunting sense that the full story had yet to be told. Months passed, and the Louvre heist continued to haunt the art world. While a few stolen masterpieces were recovered, several vanished completely, slipping through the fingers of investigators like sand through a sieve. Each missing work carried with it centuries of history, stories that could never be replaced, leaving collectors, historians, and the public stunned. The bizarre details uncovered during the investigation, the coded note, the mysterious sand from a distant desert, the untraceable shoe print remained unexplained, fueling speculation and theories that only deepened the mystery. Every new report seemed to raise more questions than answers, and the heist became a legend in its own right. Authorities pursued leads across Europe, interviewing gallery owners, antique dealers, and anyone who might have had knowledge of the stolen art. Yet each path seemed to lead to dead ends. Some pieces were rumored to have been smuggled overseas, others hidden in private collections, and a few were said to be disguised as ordinary works in unsuspecting locations. The notion that the thieves could remain several steps ahead, even months later, challenged the expertise of seasoned detectives. The public, captivated by the story, followed every update with a mix of fear and fascination. Speculation ranged from highly organized criminal syndicates to lone geniuses with impossible skill. Some even wondered if the thieves intended the crime as a performance, leaving behind strange, theatrical clues meant to taunt and confuse. The Louvre itself became a symbol of both resilience and vulnerability. Security measures were tightened, surveillance was intensified, and yet the sense of unease lingered. Visitors walked through the halls with an awareness that something extraordinary had occurred, that the museum had been violated in a way no one could have imagined. The case was studied by criminologists, art experts, and law enforcement agencies worldwide, each intrigued by the mix of meticulous planning and bizarre symbolism that defined the crime. Despite the passage of time, the Louvre heist refused to fade from memory. The 9 bizarre details remained unsolved mysteries, embedded in the story like threads waiting to be unraveled. For the world, the heist was more than a theft. It was a demonstration of audacity, cunning, and the unpredictable nature of human ingenuity. The case served as a reminder that even the most secure places could be vulnerable, and that the line between order and chaos could be crossed in the blink of an eye. Even today, the story is retold with the same sense of awe and disbelief, leaving everyone who hears it questioning what is truly possible when skill, intelligence, and audacity collide in the most shocking ways.